Hi, welcome to Real Life Talks, which is an interactive talk show where we chat about issues that are important to the community and our families. It's where we can learn from each other, support one another, and encourage others to build a strong, positive community together. I'm Binder, your host. I'm a Gen I, generation immigrant, born in this country to parents from a different birth country. My husband is white, and we have a 6-year-old, a whole wheat boy, which means he's a little brown from me and a little white from my husband. I'm a life coach, and I'm also known as DearDIDI, which is a culturally sensitive advice column where I answer questions that South Asian community and from Gen Is. Let me introduce you to our lovely co-hosts. First, we have Rabia, which is a Pakistani Canadian married with 3 kids, and she is the founder and creator of the wonderful Goodness Movement.
Thanks so much for having me, We're super excited to be here. And thanks for mentioning the Goodness Movement. It's an initiative that my family and I started about 5 years ago. It started off very small, where we would kind of head out to do small good deeds throughout the community, and it became larger as we started to see more families get involved. And the last couple of years, we've done something called the 30 Days of Ramadan Goodness. So during Ramadan, we do one good deed every single day for 30 days. Regardless of heat or thunderstorms or starving. Yeah. And so it's really caught on, and we've got a lot of people doing it in different countries and all over Canada as well. So thank you so much for having me. Super excited to talk about Gen Is and how it is living and balancing 2 cultures. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for being here. And beside Rabia, we have Aisha, and she is a Bengali Canadian single girl, and she is pursuing a career in healthcare.
Hi everyone, nice to be here. I've grown up in Canada, and now I would just like to give advice or give back to the community and to younger versions of myself, I suppose, who perhaps are confused about how to be culturally appropriate and respond to their parents and respond to the culture that they're experiencing.
Thank you. We really appreciate your perspective and everything. Thanks. We also have a special guest today, Simi from Just One's Kitchen. She specializes in helping Gen Is like me to cook desi food. Thank you for our families. Her company was a godsend for me, and I loved that she worked with her mom and her sisters, and I'm thrilled to have you as our DearDIDI recommends. And I've been trying to meet you for years.
I know, we've been chatting on the phone and over email for so long, so nice to meet you, and thank you so much for having me and including these lovely ladies. Well, I look forward to chatting with you guys.
We're very happy to have you. Thank you. So we would love to have you, all 3 of you, share your perspectives in this discussion and chat about your business, Simi, at the end of the show. So now let's get right into it. I mentioned a few minutes ago the term Gen I. It's a term that I made up, but I think that a number of people can relate to it. So what's a Gen I? It's about what we've been talking about the delicate balancing act of being Canadian and also being very proud of your culture. I answer questions and address issues that are facing Gen Is today. They are children of parents that were born elsewhere. For example, I was born in Canada to parents who immigrated from India. So their point of reference and experience is very different than mine, especially since I have 4 older siblings that were born in India, and myself and my younger sister are born here. And so what about you, Rabia? What are some of the experiences that you've had with Gen I?
Well, for me, my kind of balancing act changed very early on in my life. So it was just until I think the end of middle school or the end of grade 8 that I was still kind of struggling with trying to figure out what identity I wanted to take on. Did I want to be Canadian? Did I want to be Pakistani? To me, there was no way of fusing the two. They were just too different. But it wasn't until I got into high school and met a lot of older people that were all from many different backgrounds and were doing such a great job of kind of combining the 2 cultures. And I found that they were almost happier. They felt they were whole. They kind of were more confident in themselves. And so for me, it was an instant switch. And I started to get more involved in the South Asian community and love the food more, love the culture more. And I started to travel to Pakistan almost every other year with my parents and pick up on all the beautiful things about the culture, but then also come back and infuse that into being Canadian, and how to do like the fusion clothes and the fusion food and being able to combine the two of them. And so now with my 3 children, I try really hard to make sure that they're able to be both very Canadian and both very Pakistani, and fuse the two together and love that and be proud of who they are and their heritage and where they come from. So that's it. So right now I'm at a perfect balance, and I'm hoping to push that perfect balance and help my children find their own.
That's great. And the education piece is very, very important.
Oh, yeah.
And you were able to do it at a critical stage of your own personal development. So that's key. And that's awesome that you were able to do that. And Aisha?
I love South Asian food. I love South Asian clothing. So I would say by and large, I've had the greatest struggle in my romantic relationships because I've been in interracial relationships. And so I would say, certainly the largest challenge presented when I realized that, hey, none of my closest, not none, but like a lot of my closest friends aren't really supporting me by hanging out with us, just because I was able to go out on weekends or, just able to go out in the evenings as a university student as I pleased, but many of them weren't. Mm-hmm. So, certainly those were some of the greatest challenges I encountered as a South Asian Canadian.
Well, your insight is definitely going to be welcome during this conversation. And Cindy, what about you?
I grew up actually on the East Coast in New Brunswick when I was younger. I lived in Ontario when I was 11. Yeah. So obviously growing up there's very few South Asian families. We were in a really small town. My father's a physician, so we had to move out there because when he came from India, you had to be working in underserviced areas, etc. Yeah. So there, my only exposure to South Asian culture was the trips that my parents were very adamant about taking back to India. So every few years, they were really consistent about taking us back to India. Yeah. I learned Punjabi really well. Oddly, I don't know how I learned it when my siblings didn't. My younger siblings didn't. They totally make fun of me now. Yeah. So I was really disconnected, I think, at that point, other than having this really, staying in the village when we'd go back to India. And that was my only kind of interactions that I had. Yeah. Then we moved to Ontario. Obviously, there's way more Indian people here.
Just and South Asians.
But because I was actually in French immersion in New Brunswick, my parents made sure that I stayed in the French immersion program here in in Ontario. And so again, I was still kind of removed from the regular kind of South Asian population that are in the public schools, etc. Mm-hmm. And so I've always kind of not been really part of that group, and which was fine with me. I mean, it was, I was okay with that. I went to Indian parties with my parents, and I spoke Punjabi, and again, we kept going to India, and I ate Indian food, and I loved the culture. There probably was a little bit of me that wasn't quite sure how I fit in, and for sure I had the struggles with my parents about freedoms that I wanted. Yeah, exactly. Everything. How do you balance? And they're pretty forward thinking. They're but then when it came to things like boyfriends and going out, still everybody holds on to their traditional values, etc. Then I went to university, and of course met even more South Asian people. That's probably where I kind of hung out with more Indian people in larger groups. Yeah. And my challenge, I feel, has been now that I'm married and I have kids. I have 2 boys, and I'm married to somebody that's Goan, so I'm Punjabi, and so he's a different religion, different culture, and so I haven't been able to teach my kids Punjabi because it's so challenging. And you have to exactly. Together, I like to. I mean, if I had a spouse that spoke Punjabi, maybe, but even then, the likelihood of me doing that with somebody that's born and brought up here, it was minimal.
And your younger siblings don't even know, and they have 2 parents that spoke Punjabi.
Yeah, exactly. So people, I feel bad about it, but so the challenge for me is how do I show my kids Punjabi culture? Right. Because I don't go to a ton of Indian parties anymore, and I don't. So I've been trying to do the same thing where I've been taking them back to India on a more regular basis. So at least they have to feel that connection, because I feel a huge connection to India. Even though here, they're boys, so they're not really into clothes. That's a really easy way to do it with girls.
That's unfortunate.
And they're not really, they're really shy, so they're not into like dancing. And then the other way is through our food, because that was a big thing for us as a family. How do we maintain that the tradition of Indian food, and that's one of the reasons that we actually started our company. So we can talk about that later, but that's kind of my experience.
Well, that's great. Thank you. And there are lots of different perspectives and viewpoints in our South Asian community. Like, I didn't go back to India. My parents didn't go back very often because they had 6 kids and it was very expensive to go back. Yeah. So unlike the two of you that went back quite often and felt that sort of connection to the culture that way, I was immersed in Canadian culture from when I was a baby to about 14, which is the first time that we went to a trip to India. So with all these different viewpoints and perspectives, no one is exactly alike. So there's really not one answer to any particular question or issue. So let's get right into this question. I am a young Desi girl who doesn't feel too Desi. Perhaps because I'm often heard I do things that no good Desi girl would do. I have butted heads with my mom over everything. Now I want to move in with my boyfriend, and my mom, who brought me up alone as a single parent after my dad left us, is throwing a fit. I love my mom, and I don't want to hurt her, but I also want to live my life on my own terms, not like how she thinks that I should live my life. How do I convince my mom that this is important to me? Ladies?
I know, it's a loaded question. Our mom's going to see this. I think, okay, so I'm going to tackle this. I'm going to try to tackle this. So my perspective, again, I've worked really closely with a lot of newcomers for the last couple of years. So pulling from my experience with newcomers from many different communities, as well as my parents being immigrants themselves. Yes. I think it all comes back to, and we spoke a while ago about education and about all of that, and I think it all comes back to the same thing: is how desperately our parents are trying to hold on to their culture, and I think it comes out in so many different ways. And whether it be education, where are you working, where are you living, what are you doing, what clothes are you wearing, everything. It's all about trying to capture that culture and not let it kind of get through their fingers like sand. And so I think it's the same thing. We came all the way down here, we left everything, and it will be a failure if we see our children do this. And I think that kind of drives a lot of their emotion, a lot of their decision making, is that fear of making that mistake, or was it all a mistake to come all the way from India or Pakistan or from wherever and bring our kids here, and should we have stayed? And I think that kind of drives the fear, and it doesn't always come out in the best way, right. And sometimes we resent our parents for that. But I think we need to try to think, not to say that they're right, but to try to think from their perspective and try to understand where they're coming from and how to find compromises rather than butting heads and breaking relationships. So I think that's something that we always need to keep in mind. And the funny thing about, you do what other Desi girls, wouldn't do. I mean, every mom says, why aren't you more like that? And that mom is telling that girl, why aren't you more like, So it's always going to be like that. There's always going to be some girl that's doing something better, is more cultured, and that girl's getting the same. So I mean, that's just the auntie way. I think that's just the way.
It's definitely the way.
But so to definitely try to understand where our parents are coming from, and not whether it's right or wrong is besides the point. It's just trying to understand where it is and working from there.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's interesting because what I've noticed over the years about just like these types of topics is, a lot of our parents came, let's say, 30 years ago, and so they're still holding on to the values that were in play in India at that time.
Absolutely.
And so things have moved forward in India, but they're still,
look at
they're still stuck. No, absolutely. So it's funny because I think when you come to another country, you're so desperate to hold on to the values and the culture that you had, that you want to maintain that same thing for, decades to come. And it's interesting because sometimes even you're from the West Coast, right?
Yes.
So I find that even in BC, there's even older families that have come maybe 100 years ago, and they're even much more traditional. They're very, very traditional. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to recognize that it's hard for obviously our parents to to move forward with the times, and hopefully they can, you can point out to them and say, look, things are moving forward there. Things are changing everywhere. It's not that we're just trying to be more Canadian. It's that, everybody's changing. But ultimately, I think it's also really important to find out, talk specifically to your mom and say, what exactly is it that's
bothers you
about it? Because sometimes it is just what everybody else is thinking. Sometimes they really do feel that maybe this person is not going to stay with you forever. There's that fear of, commitment or lack of commitment before you do something. So I think if you can pinpoint the exact reasons and have those open discussions, and maybe your mom doesn't even know what that real reason is for her. She just has this feeling and she's just holding on to that fear. And then you can address it hopefully a little bit better and give each other's perspective.
And this mother is a single mom too, right? And
absolutely.
had her husband leave her to raise a child on her own. So you can see her being a bit more protective about, are you sure about this man? Or is this guy going to be around, next year, 5 years from now, and things like that, And one of the things that for me, I moved to Toronto, so I could pretty much live my life whichever way that I wanted to. But when it came to being with my now husband, who was, I saw for a little while before we got engaged, I did not want to move in with him prior to us getting married. It was a value that was instilled in me. I wanted a commitment from him. I wanted to know that we were going to build a future together, that we weren't just playing house, So I think that it's really important also for you to know yourself and what it was important to you, because I didn't have to ask permission from my parents because I was older and I had already moved away. However, there was those values that they had instilled in me that I wanted to make sure that my partner went through the litmus test, right? That they were in there for the long haul and stuff. So what about you, Aisha?
Yeah, I really appreciated what you ladies said, because I wanted to hone in on the idea that you should really try to figure out what it is exactly and specifically that is bothering your mom, because you also have to respect that she's a single mom. So whether you realize it or not, you have provided companionship, love, and support. So just the thought of you not being there, that alone is enough to frighten her, and let alone losing you to the wrong person or someone who might hurt you potentially in the long run. So that's so those are good things to hone in on. Apart from that, I wanted to give the advice that if you do decide that you'll move in with this guy, definitely, these are some common sense things, but definitely make sure you go on, talk to your doctor and go on contraception. And if this is a person you're thinking of building a life with, talk to his parents about it. See if you can get the support system from his family, because if you're going to move in with him and if you're going to pursue a relationship with him, if you're not going to have any support system from your family, you certainly want there to be a support system from his family, his friends, and your friends also. So talk to your friends, talk to his friends, talk to his family, and get some support around you to help you in whatever decision you make. And
that's an excellent point. Because when we did have this question and answer published, a viewer or a reader did write in. And she said that she hopes that this young girl actually is able to maintain a relationship with her mom, even when she does move in with her boyfriend, because she wasn't able to, and that she lost her mom over this big life decision that she made. And so what you are saying, Aisha, is a really important point for them to understand, is that sometimes the decisions that you make as an adult, you do lose the support of your loved ones. So to find that support in some other way through the partner's parents or friends or, extended family is really, really important. So
just to add as well.
Yeah,
I think it's also important to not take that step so lightly, though. Right?
Exactly.
I think that right now it's so easy for people when they're blinded by love to kind of be like, okay, fine, then I'm leaving, and but I think that those decisions made in the heat of the moment are going to stick with you for a very long time.
Yes.
And so to make sure that before you, it's not always okay just to get support from somebody else. Sometimes it needs to be your parents that you want to be there for you. So just to make sure you're treading really lightly,
Yes,
when you're making those decisions, and that you're really, really confident
Yeah.
in the decisions that you're making, because there will be long term.
And and it doesn't have to be an either or. It may be a long process that gets you to where everybody is on the same page, right? But take that time to talk, really understand both people's perspectives, have that discussion about bringing the parents together, because we were talking to Heather earlier as well, and she said when she wanted to move into her with her boyfriend, it was not a good idea there as well. So anyways, we could talk about this for a long time. So if you're curious to see how I responded to this question, please go to our website, RealLifetalks.com, to check it out. So now we're on to our DearDIDI Recommends, which is where we spotlight a local business in our community that is run by a woman entrepreneur, and that's Simi and her family. It's to educate us, inform us, and they believe in giving back to the community. So Simi will be sharing a little bit about Just Want's Kitchen and how your company came about. So welcome.
Thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, as a young South Asian person, I grew up eating traditional Indian food. My mom is a nutritionist. She has a master's in foods and nutrition. So cooking from scratch and cooking healthy food was really important when we were growing up. And she's an amazing cook. So when I moved away from home, I got married, I moved away from home, I wanted to continue making those dishes, and it's not as easy as it seems.
No, not at all.
And then I would call her and say, how do I make this? And she'd say, oh, you just throw a little bit of this in. And it would never really quite turn out. Exactly. And then just taste it and fix it. That doesn't work. So, that was a challenge for me, and my mom recognized that if she wanted to ensure that we would continue to, feed this food to our children and continue to cook it ourselves, that she needed to make it easier for us, or find a way for it to be easier for us to do.
And thank you to your mother. Yes.
So she first started trying to, first she started writing down recipes, because that was the first thing I was like, I can't work without a recipe. Yeah. So that was the first thing. Then she thought, what if I just tried to combine all the spices together? So then she started working with trying to make spice mixes, and she used to spend the summers with her grandmother every summer, and her job at her grandmother's house was to literally grind all the spices. So she literally went back to those memories that she had, and she tried to recall what things her grandmother had put in the masalas that she used to make for everyday cooking, and she came up with a few different blends, and we started to try with different things.
This one is the tikka masala. Tarka masala? Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm out. I'm completely out. So mine.
So, obviously there's the concept of getting all the spices and blending them together. That makes it easier. But also just standardizing those recipes. So having a recipe that you can follow, because obviously that makes it easier. And not only that, but you get consistent results every time. So it's interesting. Now my mom, we only use these spices, and she's like, no, every time I cook something, it always turns out the same. And she literally gets out measuring spoons and measures and follows the recipes to a T. It is.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. But not only that, the steps are there's fewer steps, and we've kept things really healthy. So normally in Indian cooking, you start by frying onions, ginger, and garlic, and then you add all the spices. So in many of our recipes, you skip that step. That step in Punjabi is called tarka. So that's why we called our spice tarka masala, because in the dal, for example, this is kind of one of our more popular recipes. It's red lentils or dal, and it's one of the quicker cooking dals. You can cook it in 20 minutes. All you do is boil the lentils with our spices and add some fresh coriander at the end. So you're not frying it. So there's no fat that's going into it. You can control the amount of sodium that you want to add. There's over 20 spices that are blended together in the right proportion. So that's why you get that really authentic taste, but without doing all the work of having all those spices. So on our website, we have all of our recipes. So you can just go online, click on the recipe, and follow the step-by-step instructions, or you can use them in different ways. We've recently just launched, actually, before we used to sell our spices in jars. So our tarka masala, we have a tandoori masala, we have a chai masala for anybody that loves Indian tea.
Yes.
Garam masala, curry powder, and raita salt. Raita salt is to make a quick raita. You just add it, sprinkle it into plain yogurt. You can put it, use it as a seasoning salt for other things. And then we've just moved to these individual pouches because what we found was that for Indian people, they may recognize these. For non-Indian people who are also really love Indian food, they're not really happy with using maybe the sauces that are available in jars, so they want to kind of make more authentic food. But if that was sitting on a shelf in the grocery store, they didn't know what to do with it. So we've kind of incorporated the recipes right in here on the back as a full recipe and grocery list. You have just enough spices to do that dish for 8 people. And we're just hoping to really inspire people to start cooking from scratch at home more and make it healthier, cook with real ingredients versus, who knows what is in those processed foods that we're buying. So that's our goal.
This is another one of my favorites. For some reason, I could not make dal properly. Not at all. So thank you for this. This is awesome. And I'll take this and I'll take this. And I'll take a few other things.
And your husband will eat well.
Yes, exactly. So thank you for watching. We would love to hear from you. If you have anything that you want us to discuss or a question you want our perspective on, feel free to drop us a line. If you like what you see, please share it on Twitter and Facebook and join us next time when we get together to share ourselves with you so we can build a good, positive community together. Until next time, speak up and listen.